Once upon a time, in faraway snowy Norway, there was a woman who had 3 daughters, and they all lived in a small house in the shadow of a great mountain. And that woman had a favorite chicken. She would carry her chicken with her wherever she went. She would talk to it day and night. She'd pet it and coax it like it was a household pet. So one day, when she couldn't find her chicken, she was very worried. She had searched the entire house and the fields right around the house, but had found nothing. So she called her oldest daughter and said, "Daughter, can you please search into the forest and up in the mountain for my chicken?" And the oldest daughter agreed. She set off, looking high and low for that chicken. But the more she looked, the less she found. Until, high up on the mountain, she heard a strange little voice saying, "The chicken trips in the mountain, the chicken trips in the mountain." Seemed a strange thing for anyone to sing. But since the song mentioned the word chicken, she thought she should go investigate, so she went up the hill. Higher and higher she climbed, till she found a great rock that seemed to be the source of the noise. But as she walked up to the rock, a trapdoor, pop, opened up, and she fell down and down into that mountain till thump! She landed into some bales of straw in what looked a bit like a cave. But as she got up and brushed herself off and began exploring around, she realized this cave had rooms carved into it. Rooms full of gold and silver. Rooms with bright tapestries and fine furniture. And as she searched through, looking for that chicken and an answer to the mystery of these cave rooms, she came to the last room, and there was a great big green ugly troll. He had a long nose dripping black snot, and just a loincloth around his waist. He had long, scary fingernails and black and yellow teeth. And he was twice the size of any human she had ever seen. He stood up from his chair and he said, "Woman, will you marry me?" And the young girl, she was frightened. She said, "No, I'm on a trip, a job, for my mother. I can't possibly marry you now." And she turned and she tried to leave, but the troll grabbed her by the arm, grabbed a great hatchet and chopped off her head, threw her body and her head down into the cellar, and slammed the trapdoor shut. The next day, when the oldest sister didn't return, the mother went to the middle sister, asked her to look for the chicken and her missing sister. And so the middle sister did the same. She went searching high and low in the forest and came to that same rock that said that strange little rhyme. "The chicken trips in the mountain, the chicken trips in the mountain." And just like her older sister, when the troll she found said, "Will you marry me?" she said, "No!" And that was the end of her. The next day, the mother realized the chicken being gone was the least of her problems. Now she was missing 2 of her 3 daughters. She was too old to go searching for them on her own, so she sent her youngest daughter. As the young daughter went climbing up into the hills and forests, she had played in them when she was younger. She knew them very well. It wasn't long before she heard that rhyme. "The chicken trips in the mountain, the chicken trips in the mountain." So she walked up to that great boulder, being careful where she put her feet, but like her 2 older sisters, she stepped in the trap door and boom! She disappeared into the mountain. When she landed on the hay, she began searching around quietly, not quite sure where she was. And she came to a room with a great trap door on the floor, and she pulled open the trap door and saw the headless bodies of her 2 sisters lying there, their heads next to them. She quietly closed the trap door And when she came to the room with the troll, and the troll said, "Will you marry me?" The youngest daughter said, "Yes, of course." The troll smiled, his black and yellow teeth glinting just a bit in the torchlight. He was so happy he gave the young woman the most beautiful clothes and set her up in the most beautiful room with a canopy bed and silver and gold furniture and chairs, brushes and combs. A few days after she arrived there in the cave, a goat stepped on the trapdoor and came falling down, thump, and began neigh, 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 neigh in the caves. Right away the troll ran up and grabbed the goat and pulled off his head. "You'll be some dinner for me," and was about to throw it down into the cellar, when the young woman said, "Well, why'd you do that? That little goat could have been a pet for me here in the cave, someone to keep me company." "Oh, well, if that's the way it is," said the troll, "I can fix this." And he went to a hook behind the chair where he sits and took down a little flask, a little container, and he opened up the lid and he wiped some of the oil on the neck of the goat and put the head back on, and suddenly, poof! The goat was alive again. And that gave the young woman a really good idea. That night, at dinner time, that she always shared with the troll, instead of talking brightly and coming up with things to discuss with her troll husband, she just looked down at her plate and pushed her food around with her fork. The troll noticed right away that something was wrong. "What's the matter, my dear?" "I just worry about my mother. You see, now that she's the only one at home, I'm certain she won't have enough food for herself. She's probably starving right now. I wish I could go and take her some food." "Ha! Ha ha ha!" said the troll. "No, you can never leave, for if you left you may not come back. But fill a bag with food, and I will carry it there tonight." She smiled. "Oh, thank you, husband. That's more than I could have wished." She sneaked down to the cellar, took the troll's magic flask, poured some oil on the neck of her oldest sister, put the head back on, and pop! She came to life. "Be quiet, sister," she said. "I found a way to get you home." And she stuffed her sister into that bag and put some apples and small cakes on top. "Now, if anyone stops to open this bag, you have to tell them right away, 'I see you, I see you.'" "Okay," said the oldest sister. The youngest sister tied up the bag and dragged it up the stairs. She set it down on the floor and called her husband. And she told him, "Now, husband, I've put in food for my mother, but this food, well, if it gets opened in the cold night air, it might go stale, so you must promise never ever to open this bag." "Oh, I promise," said the troll. And he hoisted the big bag over his shoulder, and he hadn't gone more than 10 steps right outside his cave entrance before he slammed the door shut. They began thinking about, maybe I should look into this bag. The youngest daughter, looking through a peephole in the door, said, "I can see you, I can see you." What eyes she must have, thought the troll, and he stomped off all the way home. Well, not to his home, of course, but to the home of the girls and their mother. He pounded on the door, and when the old woman opened the door, he dropped the sack on the doorstep, saying, "This is from your daughter. She wants for nothing in the mountain." And he turned and left. The mother was frightened to see a troll standing right there, but when she opened the bag and saw food and her oldest daughter, she smiled. A week later, the youngest daughter did the same thing with her middle sister. But this time, she loaded some gold and silver along with her sister into the bag, and put some cakes and apples on top, and tied up the bag tight, making her husband promise not to look inside. Now this time, he went halfway down the mountain, and he was about to open the bag when he heard a voice say, "I can see you! I can see you!" And he stopped. Of course, it was the second sister, but he didn't know that. He put the bag up on his shoulder and he stomped back to the house, pounded on the door, dropped the bag off, and left. A month later, the youngest sister, she'd been biding her time and thinking. And finally, she said, "It's time again. I'm sure my mother must be getting hungry. Could I please send her some more food?" "Of course," said the troll. "Don't I tell you you can do that whenever you want?" And so she set to work. But this time she gathered gold and silver and put it into the sack. Then she climbed in and put some apples and cakes above her. And as she was sitting in that sack, she remembered, if the troll discovers I've left, he'll come and get me. So she came up with another plan. She told the troll, "After you deliver the bag of food to my mother, you might as well stay out all night. I'm feeling rather poorly right now. I'm probably going to go right to bed. I'm feeling somewhat sick, but I'll have your food ready for you in the morning." "Okay," said the troll. "You have that sack ready yet?" Not quite yet." And so she set to work. Using those bales of straw, she made a straw girl out of them, dressed in some of her clothes, and set it inside the fireplace. Because back then the fireplaces are much bigger than they are now. And sometimes people would step right inside to do the cooking. She set up a straw girl right there with a spoon in the pot, just as if it were her. And in the shadows and the darkness, it was hard to tell. Then she climbed into that bag, put some apples and cakes above her head, tied the knots, and then pushed them through the top again, and said, "The bag's ready, I'm going to bed." And the troll came out. He picked up the bag and went stomping out of his secret entrance in the mountain. He'd gotten into the deep, deep forest, almost to the edge of the clearing where the old woman and the three girls lived, when he thought, "This bag's really heavy this time. I better see what's inside." And he set the bag down and suddenly heard a clear voice, "I can see you! I can see you!" And so he didn't untie the knots. He came over and dropped the bag in front of the old woman's house once again and stomped off into the forest. He didn't come home till morning. And when he got there, he saw his wife, or what he thought was his wife, cooking in the great big fireplace. And he said, "Woman, make me some food." That's the way trolls normally talk to their wives. But his wife said nothing. "I said, woman, make me some food," he said, and he threw a cup toward her. But she said nothing, which was very strange. And so he got up, pushed his chair across the room, stomped over to the woman and said, "Why don't you talk to me? Why aren't you making my dinner?" And he swatted at her. And the straw girl fell right over. And he looked and he saw it was straw, and he looked around. "Where did you go? You can't hide from me." And he went running all through the caves and rooms that he had there in the great big mountain. And when he couldn't find her there, he thought, "She's escaped!" And he ran out his secret entrance. But in his rage, he completely forgot that the one thing that a troll fears is the sun. And as he took a step out into the bright light, he felt that sun turn him to stone. And that was the end of that troll. Although to this day on that mountain they say you can find a great big boulder that looks an awful lot like an angry troll. But from that day to this, that woman and her daughters, well, they lived happily ever after.